Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you my wrap up for the final month of 2025, December. I read a lot of books in December because of my project, but also because of lots of reading. So I think we should not spend too much time on an intro. The way this works is I will give you some stats before we go into the book reviews, and then we will finish the video off. The cat is not very happy with me filming so much. She really doesn't like it, so there might be a lot of chaos in this video. I'm making no promises. Let's start out with the stats. So these stats have to do with my goal of reaching a 0 TBR by the end of the year. Spoiler alert, I did not do that, but I still made a good dent. So I started out the year with 37 books on the TBR. Then throughout the month, I acquired quite a few books. So the number went up instead of down, which wasn't great. So we started out December with 25 books on the TBR, which was a good reduction from where it went over the year. However, I was a bit worried about Christmas, so let's see what happened. So the first number that is important is the number of books that I have finished reading, and that was 18 books in December. I don't know if I have ever read so many books in one month, but it is a little bit unhinged, especially considering that my sabbatical was over by that point. But yeah, I finished reading 18 books. Then we have the number of books that I have bought and received, so that includes my Christmas gifts. And in December, I have 12 books that moved into my home. 8 of those were Christmas books. Last but not least, we have the number of books that I have borrowed, and that was 2. So in that regard, we did quite well. Then I also reread some books, so these are books that are not actually coming off the TBR, and I reread 3 books in December. And last but not least, I returned 1 book unread to the library. That was a Christmas book, so I knew that if I wasn't gonna read it before Christmas, I wouldn't read it at all. So if we take this all together, 18 books read, 12 books hauled, 2 books borrowed, 3 rereads, and 1 book returned to the library unread, I managed to reduce the TBR again by 2 books, and it's so exciting. You cannot imagine how proud I am that I managed to reduce the TBR even though I had my Christmas gifts. I am so stoked about that. So we're leaving the year with 23 books on the TBR, and I have to say I'm very proud of that, considering out of the 23, 8 are books that I just added at the end of December. I think I did well. I did not reach the quote-unquote 0, but that was never my actual goal. My actual goal was to read all the books I owned pre-2025, and I did that almost. So I am very proud of myself. And yeah, you can say whatever you want. I just feel that way. Now that these stats are out of the way, let's see all the book reviews, all the books that I finished. And I hope you've grabbed yourself a hot drink because we're going to be here for a while. The first book I finished in December was Under the Mistletoe with You by Lizzie Huxley-Jones. This was a very highly anticipated Christmas read I had because I loved Make You Mine This Christmas by the same author. This is set in the same world. We are following a character we've already met in the first book, Christopher, as he has his own Christmas romance. He meets this trans actor, Nash, and they hit it off. It was very sweet. I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I finished another Christmassy audiobook, and that was A Christmas Ghost Story by Newman. This one is a spooky Christmas story. I enjoyed the concept of this one more than the actual written story. In this one, we follow a mother and a son who live in a remote area in the United Kingdom, and as Christmas approaches, they start receiving these very ominous Christmas cards, and that has something to do with the mother's life story. And I gave this one 3.5 stars. I still think that it was like a nice little spooky novella, but I think another author could have done much more with this sort of premise. Then I finished another short novella that was holiday themed, and that is Cozy for the Holidays by Liz Maverick. This is a Hanukkah romance where we follow two people who are best friends and then over the holidays maybe start feeling different feelings about each other. Now, this one I didn't love so much. I really didn't like the love interest. I read a different book from the author, Booked for the Holidays, before I read this one, and I enjoyed Booked for the Holidays much more. I like the characters more and I like their relationship more. The friends to lovers just isn't really for me, so I gave this one 3.5 stars. But it is very short and holiday-y, so I guess you can't really go wrong with it. Then the next book I finished again was a Christmassy audiobook, quite a short one, and that was Christmas Ever After by Michelle Stimpson. I read another Michelle Stimpson book last year, Something Gingerbread Inn, and I really enjoyed that one, so I wanted to see what the author would do next. In this one, we follow the mayor of a small town and the kind of movie star of a Christmas movie as they kind of get entangled into each other's lives. This one was cute. I do always enjoy it when Christmassy romances have some kind of like movie subplot, so I did really enjoy that one. And I liked that this one also really focuses in on the female main character and her character development, her learning more about herself and maybe kind of like the toxic things that she has learned from her mother, who was also the mayor before her and was like very successful until she passed away. So I did like this one, but I didn't like it quite as much as the other book by the author, so I gave this one 3.5 stars as well. Then I finished another audiobook and also a reread that I did, and that was The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This is a book I reread every other year. This is a Christmas Carol retelling. I absolutely love this book. I gave it 4.5 stars because it isn't perfect, and I think it just works really, really well for me personally. But in this one, we follow a girl who is a Scrooge. But when the three ghosts of the Christmases visit her, she does not change her way. She doesn't really believe in it. And so she passes away. And when she wakes up, she is now the ghost of Christmas past. And she works in this company that is called Project Scrooge. And she has to help bring the Scrooges onto the right path of their lives. So this goes on for about 5 years when a special Scrooge is chosen for the year. And that is also a teenager, and it's like the first time after Holly that a teenager is chosen as the Scrooge, and she starts to just feel a lot about that. So yeah, I really loved this one and it was such a fun time rereading it. Then I also finally got to finish a project book, and that was Katzen, lieben, Weihnachten. This is a German short story collection my mom gave me last year, where we have short stories about Christmas and cats. I preferred the stories in the first half of the book. The second half was a little bit more experimental and didn't always work out for me. So overall, I would give this one 3.5 stars, and I thought it was cute and Christmassy and I liked it. Next up, I finished another reread, and that was Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is one of my favorite books because it's just so sweet. I think that Tolkien was such a sweet man when it came to his family, and in this one we have a collection of letters that he wrote for his children as Father Christmas throughout the 1920s and 30s, going into the beginning of the 1940s. And I think this is just such a cute book. I would definitely recommend picking it up in print because it has illustrations, and also it has a lot of the original, I think it has all of the original letters as well that are just so fun to look at. And yeah, I really, really loved this one. I gave this one 4.5 stars too. It's such a nice book to reread around Christmas time. And then I finished my last reread for the year, and that was Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. This is the second book in the Simon Snow series. Now, Carry On came out way before this one, and I always thought it was a standalone, but this one has the heavy lifting of taking a story that is pretty much finished and then continuing on with it. And I think it does a good job. I do like this book, but it's just not as good as Carry On. Now, in the first book of the series, we follow mainly Simon Snow, who is the chosen one. The first book is heavily inspired by kind of like Harry Potter, and you have a kind of Harry and Malfoy situation going on with Simon and his vampire roommate Baz. However, they fall in love and I just love their dynamic so much. We also have a character named Penelope, and she is kind of the one who's like really good at everything and she knows everything, and I love her as well. And then we have Agatha, who at the beginning of the book is Simon's girlfriend, and she really doesn't feel like being magical. She's just annoyed with it all, and I think that is such an interesting perspective as well in a magical book. Now, in the second one, I can't really talk much about what happens, but basically because Simon has kind of finished his prophecy in the first book, this very much focuses on the like after a lot of like kind of PTSD stuff. And because of that, Simon and Baz are really struggling with their relationship because, yeah, they have pretty much done what they were told to do. And the kind of like thing is like, what's next, you know? They both never really thought they would even reach this point, and now they have to figure out what to do. This is also a road trip book because they travel through the US for reasons. Yeah, I like it. I give it 4 stars, but it's just not as good as the first one for me. Now, I do have a few books that I didn't note down in my little reading journal thing, so let's just talk about them right now. The next one I have is The Women's History of the Modern World by Rosalind Miles. This is a non-fiction book that focuses on women and what they did in the last 200 years, the women's movement, all of that. A lot about suffragettes as well, and like the different rights women were fighting for in the last 200 years. I really enjoyed this. I think it is a little bit surface level, so if you're just starting to learn about these things, this might be a good introduction. I gave this one 4 stars. There were definitely a couple of like anecdotes in here that I hadn't heard before, so that was kind of fun. I don't think that if you have already learned a lot about like women and women's history that you need to read this one, but because it is like very easy to read, I think it's a great place to start. Then I also finished my worst book of the year, and that was Die Unglückseligen by Thea Dorn. This is just bad. I hated this book. This was a gift I got from a friend many years ago, and because I already expected that I would hate it, I never actually read it. However, in this one, we follow a main character who is a biologist, and she wants to figure out how to live forever. And she is German, but she works in the United States. And one day she meets this guy who seems to have lived for hundreds of years already. And so she makes it her mission to figure out his genes to learn his secret. However, that all backfires, and then it's just a burning mess. I think this book tries to be like a modern Faust, but it's not. It's just bad. The writing is bad. It's really pretentious. The story is bad. The characters are terrible. I hated the main character. I mean, the whole idea of immortality is not appealing to me at all. So I hated this. I gave this 1.5 stars. And I don't know when the last time was that I gave a book such a low rating. And I think the last book that I didn't note down exactly in my reading journal was the first volume of the Grimm's Fairytales. Now, you can like consider this a book read or not because I didn't read all of them. So for like my Storygraph logging, for example, this doesn't count as a single book. However, I do count it. You can come for me if you want. So yeah, I finished reading the first volume of the Grimm's Fairytales. This is the original collection with all the original texts. Some of these are written in dialect, which is a struggle for me, let me just tell you. But yeah, I am enjoying this. I will give the overall collection 4 stars. So I also gave this one 4 stars. I think it's just such a fascinating piece of just like literature, especially if you're German. I think it's just nice to have on the shelves, but I also wanted to have read it when it's on the shelves. Let's talk about another audiobook because I don't want to forget to talk about this one, and that is The Christmas Tree Murders by Andrea Hicks. This is a 1920s kind of mystery novel. This is the first one in the Camille Devine series, and in this one we follow our main character of Camille Devine, who is a woman who's separated from her husband. So she has a little bit of a struggle in her life, but then also she's a lady. So she has a daughter, and then she also has kind of like staff and friends, and they all come together to solve this case of several murders that appear where women are murdered and then they're put under a Christmas tree in London, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They are mutilated as well, and there seems to be a hint in that. Now, the funny thing about this is that the solution of this case is tied to something that actually happened in history that I read about in the women's history book. So I thought that was kind of fun, but I don't want to say more about it because I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, I thought it was a little fun fact. I enjoyed this one. I gave it 3.5 stars. I liked that this one had more of like people coming together to solve the case, but also Camille is like very progressive for the time, but then she's also sometimes a bit odd about it. So yeah, I don't know if I will continue reading this series, but I did enjoy the first book. Okay, going back to the project books, I next finished the 120 Days of Sodom by Marquis de Sade. I gave this one 2 stars, I think. I really don't recommend reading this. This is not a complete book because Marquis de Sade wrote this one while he wasn't a free man. He spent a lot of time in prison and then also in asylums. And so he didn't have the paper to write the book. Now, if you look at this thing, it is already massive. And I think a lot of it is quite boring because he didn't actually get to edit it as well. So this is kind of like his first manuscript thing that he probably wanted to improve on, but it didn't get to. So I would not recommend you read this. There's a lot of eating poop. If you're into that, maybe this is more enjoyable. I would say if you want to try Marquis de Sade, just read Justine. I have read more of his books, and I think that is the only like really good one. Then I finished a short story, and that was The Sixth Death of the Saint by Alix E. Harrow. Unfortunately, this is one of those like Amazon short stories that you can't really get anywhere else, but I had this like weird Audible coupon, so I used it to buy 2 of Alix E. Harrow's short stories. Now, I really wanted to read this one because I had heard that this is kind of connected or has a similar idea to her new book, The Everlasting. And I can definitely see why. In this one, we follow a little girl who is very, very ill, and she's an orphan, and a saint appears to her and tells her to go to her king and to start serving him, and she becomes a famous knight, and she wins so many wars for her king. And this was a very, very interesting story. It has some time fuckery in it, which I very much appreciated, and it really asks the question of was it worth it? And I gave this one 5 stars. And then I finished a second short story by Alix E. Harrow, and that was The Knight and the Butcherbird. And this one is a post-apocalyptic story where we follow a woman who is kind of the storyteller of her people, and she meets this knight who is there to kill a demon. And they have kind of like discussions about what these demons are, where they come from, why they happen. And I really enjoyed this one as well. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the other story, but it had like this very beautiful look at love and what we do when the people we love change and why they change and whether we can change with them. So I gave this one 4.5 stars. And now for the last few project books. I finished reading The Secret Years by Judith Lennox. I did not like this one. This is just not historical fiction that is written for me. This was also a gift. I had read another Judith Lennox book before and also didn't love that one. In this one, we follow Thomasine in the 1920s in the UK. She grows up quite poor, but she always had this like weird friendship with 2 boys. Daniel, who is the son of the smith, and then Nicholas, I think, who is the son of the lord of the area. And we follow her life story as well as some side characters. I gave this one 3 stars. I think if you enjoy stories like that, this is a good one, but I just don't. It's like a very sad look. Like, I do like 1920s books, but not the like life was so hard and sad when you were poor kind of stories. And there's just so much going on with the relationships and people just being so awful to each other that I have a hard time really caring about anyone. Like, all of these characters were awful. Then I finished reading 3 Cups of Tea by Greg Mortensen and David Oliver Rellon. This is a little bit of a controversial book. I did enjoy some parts of it, especially the message that we need education to counter terror and that just dropping bombs on countries is not the solution. Now, there is like some talk about this book, about parts of it not being real, which for a non-fiction memoir kind of book, that is not great. I don't know about that. I gave this one 3 stars. My main criticism is that a few parts of this are like so boring. And I feel like he's not really the author, but Greg Mortensen, the guy this book is about, he probably is a little bit neurodivergent. I just got that vibe. And so he probably, like, the thing that he's accused of is like mismanagement, and you can totally see that. But also, I think he just needed more help that he didn't get, probably. But if you want to read about like girls' education in Pakistan, I would say read Malala's book. I don't think you need to read this one. The last one I finished for the year was Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult. This is a weird book about the pandemic, and it is very much about the pandemic and about COVID, so keep that in mind if you want to pick it up. I would not recommend that. I gave this one 2 stars as well. This has a twist in the middle of the book that I thought was the most dumb shit I have read in a while. I actually had a laugh at it because I couldn't believe it was happening. But overall, I would not recommend this book. We are following a character called Diana who has all her life figured out. She works for one of those like art auction house thingies, and she's making lots of money, and her partner is a doctor in New York. And then the pandemic hits, and they had this plan to go to the Galapagos Islands, and she was very sure that he would propose to her there. However, because of the pandemic, he says he can't go with her and that she should go alone. And this is kind of like Eat, Pray, Love, but deadly pandemic. It's just not for me. I could not. I could not with this book. And with that, we have finished the wrap up for December of 2025. Let me know what was your favorite book that you have read during that month. I think for me personally, the rereads were the real highlights. I didn't really love a lot of my project books, but I am very glad that I finally read them. Some of these I had on my TBR for over 10 years. And so it is so freeing to finally got them off. Now behind me, you see my stack of new TBR books. Not even all of them, because I use some of them as a stand for the mic. We still have a good amount of books to choose from for the new year. If you're interested in that, I already uploaded a January TBR you can check out, and obviously I will continue vlogging and making content in the new year. So if you want to subscribe, I would love to have you here. Don't forget to leave a like, that always helps me out. And with that, I say goodbye. I'll talk to you soon.